All right, old school NBA fans, self-research NBA facts. Got another video for you. As always, thanks to anybody who watches my videos, subscribes to my channel. I really appreciate it. Want to give a special thanks to Vodski Chug, my brother from Poland. Thank you so much for the very generous super thanks. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. The fact that I get this kind of support all the way, halfway around the world, man, it's extraordinary. It really is. Thank you so much. My comment of the day comes from Black Guy. He's been here a while. He leaves a lot of good comments. This one here, again, so hard to choose because there's so many, but he says, "We all saw what LeBron was. The funny thing is that LeBron had what Jordan had and more. LeBron was the primary scorer, ball handler, and assist man on his team with a group of guys who played hard defense. They let LeBron do whatever he wanted with the ball. He just wasn't good enough to make anything of that. How can the person with all the freedom, praise, and accolades receive none of the blame? Personally, I think LeBron is an avatar for his fans to live out their fantasies of their disappointments. They probably failed too and would like to blame someone else." I mean, yeah, Michael Jordan was, back in the late 80s, 88, 89, 90, he was a lead assist guy. He was a guy distributing and scoring, absolutely. And contrary to what idiots like Colin Cowherd and all the other fools we hear on TV or on YouTube, Michael Jordan had success. The Bulls had success before Phil Jackson came along. They won 50 games in 1988 with Charles Oakley as their second best player, and then you had rookie Horace Grant and Pippen who were on the bench. The next year in 89, Michael Jordan averaged 32 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. Turns out that's actually very rare for somebody to have that stat line, that many points with that many rebounds and assists. It's rare. LeBron never did it. And they got to the Eastern Conference Finals in 1989. They had success. Obviously, when Phil Jackson came in, he was inheriting the Bulls when they were on their way up. Phil Jackson would have Scottie Pippen facilitate, especially when Michael Jordan went to the bench. Usually, Pippen would be the guy out there with the bench players. That's just the way they did it. But yeah, he's right here. Cleveland had guys that could play defense. There was plenty of them. Larry Hughes made an all-defense. Eric Snow made an all-defense. Anderson Varejao made all-defense. Drew Gooden was a decent defender. It wasn't just a cast of bums. He got all the accolades. He gets all the praise when things go good. Then he should get the blame when things go wrong. Thanks for the comment, Black Guy. I appreciate it very much. In this video here, I know we've all heard this a million times before, the clutch LeBron media heads, they love using number of Hall of Famers as their metric on how they evaluate or grade a team. It's the stupidest thing because we all know a Hall of Fame player was not a Hall of Famer while they were playing. That's number one. Nobody was out there saying like, "Oh, I don't know, coach, they got 3 Hall of Famers over there." Nobody knew for sure who was going to get in the Hall of Fame, especially when these guys were young. Number two, when you just point out Hall of Famers, you're not saying at what stage are they in their career. The 2006 Miami Heat had 4 Hall of Famers on it. Did it feel like it? I mean, Gary Payton shared time with Jason Williams at the point. Alonzo Mourning would spell Shaquille O'Neal at center, but it didn't feel like they had 4 Hall of Famers. It felt like they had 1 prime Hall of Famer in Dwayne Wade, 1 just on the outside of his prime in Shaq, and 2 other guys in the twilight of their career. That's what it felt like to me. But this stuff can get dumb really quick. Here's some media clips right here.
I mean, think about what he's going up against. He lost to the Spurs.
Going up against
the Spurs. How many Hall of Famers do the Spurs have?
You hate the Spurs. You always call them broccoli.
But that doesn't mean their coaches going to the Hall of Fame. Duncan, Parker, and Manu.
Michael Jordan was going up against the Goon Squad in New York. Patrick Ewing, the late, great Anthony Mason.
Not a Hall of Famer.
Charles Oakley.
My good friend, not a Hall of Famer.
John Starks.
Not a Hall of Famer.
It doesn't matter. They were beating his butt.
Is Kevin Garnett going to the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Is Paul Pierce going to the Hall of Fame?
It's a different time.
Is Ray Allen going to the Hall of Fame?
And they beat him too.
Because we didn't feel he could beat our 5. He's talking about 3 first ballot Hall of Famers: Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce. Rondo is a fringe. We will remain to be seen. And they're talking about beating a 24, 25-year-old LeBron James. Now, that was Skip. Think about this. It was KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rondo, Kendrick Perkins, Tony Allen, and Rasheed Wallace came off the bench, going against LeBron James, Mo Williams, Antoine Jameson, Tony Parker, 37-year-old Shaq, and Anderson Varejao. Larry Bird didn't say we broke Mike. Those guys didn't talk about that because they realized it's Mike against 3. It's Mike against 4. But when Mike got Scotty, now Michael going through there kicking butt.
LeBron's got 3 rings where in the finals, he beat a team that was far better than any team Jordan ever beat. Best team Jordan ever beat in the finals, 96 Sonics. Don't hold a candle to the Thunder with KD, Russ, and Harden. Don't hold a candle to the 4 Hall of Famer San Antonio Spurs.
You are overlooking the Utah Jazz, who beat great teams in the West to get to the finals. That's not how you measure a team.
You get the context. You know the fools we're dealing with. All right, so in Michael Jordan's playoff career, here's who he played. In 1985, Milwaukee Bucks, they were a 59-23 team. Sidney Moncrief was the only Hall of Famer on that team. Now, do you look at that team and say, well, it was one Hall of Famer and a bunch of role players? Terry Cummings was 5th for MVP. He was the best player on the team, most likely. Moncrief was probably right there, maybe a co-best player, because Moncrief was 2nd team All-NBA and 1st team All-Defense, but they also had Paul Pressey, a guy giving you over 15 points a game, making 1st team All-Defense as well. I think that kind of stuff is a lot more accurate of a gauge. Plus your net rating, your defensive rating, your record. Those are the kind of things to really measure a team, especially if the league is in good health. Now, if it's weak, like in the 2010s, you're going to have a bunch of teams that are like, wow, that team won 58 games, that team won 59 games. Yeah, that happened a lot in the 2010s, actually. In 1986, yes, the Bulls played Boston. They had 5 Hall of Famers, but only 4 of them were in their prime. And yeah, it was a lot, no doubt. 1987, 4 Hall of Famers, at least in the 6-man rotation. I'm just going to do 6-man rotation because anybody who wasn't playing shouldn't even be mentioned. But yeah, so Michael Jordan's first 3 series, he played against 10 Hall of Famers. But that's not how I look at it. I look at it as he played 3 teams that won 59 games or more, loaded with players on the MVP ballot, all defensive players, all NBA players. That's how I look at it. But even going by their stupid metric, how many teams do you think Michael Jordan played in his entire career that had no Hall of Famers? And note the teams that they were. 1988 Cleveland Cavaliers. They didn't have any Hall of Famers on their team. This was the number 5 rated defensive team. They were 42-40, but they were red hot coming down the stretch. Okay? In the next round, Detroit, 4 Hall of Famers. But Joe Dumars and Dennis Rodman were not even in their prime yet. Adrian Dantley was past his prime, and Isaiah was still in his prime. Okay, so again, 1 prime Hall of Famer, and the other guys either weren't quite in it or past it. Nevertheless, this was a great team, but it wasn't because of the Hall of Famers. It was because of Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn and James Edwards and Vinnie Johnson, the wave of players that just kept coming at you. That was the strength of Detroit from 88 to 91. Absolutely. 1989 in the first round. Cleveland, no Hall of Famers on that team. Mark Price, he made All-NBA. They had 3 All-Stars on that team, though. They had Brad Daugherty, they had Mark Price, and they had Larry Nance. 3 All-Stars. And then you had Ron Harper, a guy who was like right there, averaging, 20 points a game? So you had 4 All-Star level players. That beats 2 or 3 over-the-hill Hall of Famers. The next series, they played the Knicks. They only had 1 Hall of Famer. Now, does that mean that the Knicks were better than Cleveland? Even though Cleveland was the number 1 net-rated team and were 5 wins better? No, of course not. This is a stupid metric by the media for one purpose only, so they can count all the Hall of Famers that beat LeBron James. 89 Detroit, they got 3 Hall of Famers on their team. But did you know, in 1989, those 3 Hall of Famers, I would say Dumars and Rodman are now entering their prime. Isaiah's still in his prime. None of these guys made All-NBA. The 63-win Detroit Pistons had 0 players make All-NBA. But 3 Hall of Famers on paper. Oh, looks great for Jordan, right? Oh, you lost to 3 Hall of Famers. What do you expect? We only had 2. In 1990, Milwaukee, Jack Sikma, 1 Hall of Famer. Was he even the best player on that team? No way. It was Alvin Robertson. Philadelphia, they only had 1 Hall of Famer. Charles Barkley, and a bunch of role players, right? But they won 53 games. Detroit 1990, the exact same thing as 89. So far, in the years before the Bulls won a championship, the Jordan years, they only played against 2 teams that had no Hall of Famers. Cleveland, in both cases, 88 and 89. And I think we'd all agree they all had high-level players on their team. You had players like Hot Rod Williams and Craig Elo as like your 5th and 6th best players. This was a nice team. 1991, I argue easily their easiest run all the way through the playoffs. However, in the first round against the under 500 Knicks, they had 2 Hall of Famers on their team. Oh, they had Patrick Ewing and Maurice Cheeks. The next round, Barkley, that's 1. Detroit in 91, they had 3. And then the Lakers in the finals, they had 3. That's 9 Hall of Famers in that championship run. Wow. Yet they only beat 1 team over 50 wins. Now I understand Isaiah's injury definitely skewed what their win total was going to be. If he would have played more games, they probably would have been closer to 55. They were still a pretty formidable team, even though the Bulls swept them. They were. 1992, Miami, another under 500 team. They did not have any Hall of Famers. They were under 500 team. Okay, fine. That's 3. The Knicks in 92, a 51 team that pushed the Bulls 7 with 1 Hall of Famer. But going by these idiots, this team, even though they won 51 games and pushed the 67-win Bulls to 7 games, was not as good as the 91 team that was 39 and 43 because they had 2 Hall of Famers. See how dumb this stuff can get? In the next round, they played Cleveland again, a 57-win team. A solid, very good team, chock full of good players. But they had no Hall of Famers. That's number 4. Portland Trailblazers. Even though these guys had credentials, Kevin Duckworth, multiple-time All-Star. Clifford Robinson, All-Star, All-Defense. Buck Williams, what's he like, a 3-time All-Star, All-NBA, multiple All-Defenses, Rookie of the Year. Terry Porter, multiple All-Stars. Danny Ainge, All-Star. And then, of course, Clyde Drexler, the runner-up for the MVP, top 75 player. But on paper, the way these idiots are going to tell you, oh, it was just Drexler and a bunch of role players. Buck Williams, Terry Porter were not role players. That's a lie. But that's what these idiots will tell you. It was a lot harder to get in the Hall of Fame during this era, apparently. I mean, do I think that Chauncey Billups is way better than Mark Price, Kevin Johnson, Terry Porter? I don't. I think it's close. I think Billups might be a little bit better, but not by much. But he's in the Hall of Fame because he beat the 04 Lakers and got Finals MVP. Guaranteed without that, he's not in the Hall of Fame. But Jordan just didn't allow that. I'm sorry. Shaq and Kobe did. They allowed to get upset. Now you can say, oh, that was a great defensive team. That's fine. But still, they lost. They were favored to win. They had the team to win. They just didn't, for whatever reason. So in 1992, the Bulls lost 7 games. They lost 3 against 9 Hall of Famers. But in this year, they lost 7 against 2 Hall of Famers. All they beat was Ewing and Drexler. That's it. So it must have been an easy run, right? Then why'd they lose 7 games? Why? Why in 91 against 9 Hall of Famers did they only lose 3 games then? Stupid. In 1993, Atlanta had Dominique Wilkins. Cleveland, once again, no Hall of Famers. They played them 4 times, and they didn't have a Hall of Famer. That's the 15. Those 4 and the 39-win Miami Heat. The Knicks in 93, 1 Hall of Famer. They won 60 games, and they throttled the Bulls in the regular season. Go back and either watch those games or at least look at the box score. They busted the Bulls up all season. In the finals, only Barkley. Even though, again, Dan Marley, Tom Chambers, Kevin Johnson. These guys had credentials. Kevin Johnson's borderline Hall of Famer now. Mark Price has more top 10s for MVP than Carmelo Anthony does, tell you that much. So in 93, they only beat 3 Hall of Famers. Wow. LeBron did that when he joined Miami and beat the Boston Big Three when they were past their prime. And what was it, 2011, 2012? He did better than that when he was on Miami. He beat 3. It took Jordan over the course of 4 series in 1993. 1995, this is a perfect example. Charlotte's a 50-win team. They got Alonzo Mourning, 1 Hall of Famer. Right. Larry Johnson was a very nice player. Very good. He got injured. He never materialized. But there was a time he was on the trajectory to being a Hall of Famer. Orlando in 95. Shaq, the only Hall of Famer. Penny was top 10 for MVP that year. A very good team. Second three-peat, 1996. The Bulls played Miami 42-40. They had 2 Hall of Famers on that team. They won 3-0. They were a 42-40 team. Now, granted, they got Hardaway earlier in the year. That would have affected the record. They would have won more, I'm sure. But on paper, this 42-40 Miami team looks a lot better than the 92 and the 93 and the 89 Cleveland Cavaliers, doesn't it? Just stupid. Then the Bulls played the Knicks with only Ewing, Orlando with only Shaq, even though Penny was 3rd for MVP in 1996, led Orlando to a 17-4 record while Shaq was nursing an injury. This guy was one of the best, probably 3 or 4 players in the league in 1996. He was amazing in 96. But he didn't stay healthy, have a long Hall of Fame career, so he's going back now. We're going to revise it and say he's now a bum. And then in 96, of course, Seattle. It's only Gary Payton is the only Hall of Famer on that team. Sean Kemp, absolutely trajectory Hall of Famer. He's borderline even now. Detlef Schrempf should get consideration because of all the international stuff, whatever. This is a guy who made all NBA. He made all defense. He was a good player, multiple all-star, very solid. Number 3. Love to have that guy on my team as the 3rd best player. Hersey Hawkins made all-star. Nate McMillan made all-defense. Sam Perkins, what was he, the 5th, 6th best player on that team? But all in all, they beat 5 Hall of Famers on a whole championship run. Must have been easy. They had to be bum teams, though. 1997, the Washington Wizards, they had Chris Webber. Atlanta, 1 Hall of Famer, Dikembe Mutombo. Never mind that Leitner made all-star that year. Steve Smith made all-star, I believe, the year before, the year after. Mookie Blaylock was 3rd for Defensive Player of the Year. Mutombo was Defensive Player of the Year. This was a very good team. A 56-win team in the semifinals. Then in the conference finals, Miami, 61-21. Lonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway again. But nobody cares that they had Jamal Mashburn, a nice player, Dan Marley, Vashawn Leonard, P.J. Brown. Nobody cares about that. All they want to look at is Hall of Famers, at least the LeBron crowd. And then, of course, in the championship against Utah, only 2 Hall of Famers. You heard Nick right. 2. You only got 2. Well, how did those 2 Hall of Famers then beat the 3 Hall of Famers of Olajuwon, Drexler, and Barkley? They were all the same age. They're all middle 30s. Explain it. I'd love to hear it. They beat Shaq and Kobe. Beat them easy. Beat them in 5. So in that run, it's 6 Hall of Famers. Now, I'm in the minority by saying I think Utah in 97 was the best team the Bulls played in the finals. A lot of people like Seattle in 96, and that's a good choice. I just think Utah in 97 was a hair better. They were rolling. But going by this, in 96, the Bulls beat 5 Hall of Famers. In 97, they beat 6. 1998, the 6th and final team that Michael Jordan played that had no Hall of Famers on it, the New Jersey Nets in the first round. So 31 of the 37 had at least 1 Hall of Famer on it. 6 of the 37 had 0. Now, I personally don't care anything about number of Hall of Famers at all. But playing their game, going by their own metric, that's something that should be acknowledged. In the semifinals, they played Charlotte in 98. Vlade Divac was the only Hall of Fame player. Now, Glenn Rice, I believe the year before in 97, was top 5 for MVP. That's a high mark. That dude was straight balling right then. Anthony Mason was making All-NBA right around that time. Anthony Mason, remember on the Knicks? The role player? Yeah, he was making All-Defense and All-NBA. Then in the conference finals, Chris Mullin coming off the bench, but he's the sixth man. He's a Hall of Famer. And of course, Reggie Miller. You got two. And then against Utah, who destroyed the whole Western Conference playoffs, they got two Hall of Famers on that team. So that's a total of 5. So going by their metric, the 97 was the toughest run. Even though in 98, they lost 6 games en route to a championship. 93 and 98 was their toughest. But not going by these idiots' metric. Now, I'm going to give you 2 last facts before I wrap this up. Patrick Ewing, in his entire career, won 13 playoff series without a Hall of Fame teammate. That's right, 13. That's a lot, including multiple in 93, 3 in 94, and maybe would have won it if John Starks would have hit that 3, and multiple in 99 before he got hurt in the conference finals. But players like Larry Johnson, Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, these are nice players. Ewing gets all the shine because he's a one Hall of Famer. Stupid. And then how about this little nugget? Larry Bird won 0 playoff series without multiple Hall of Fame teammates. He never won a playoff series without multiple Hall of Fame teammates. Largely because he always had multiple Hall of Fame teammates. So I just hate this narrative. I think it's so dumb. The reason why they want to drive this home is because a large part of it is San Antonio in 2014 and Golden State in 2015, 17, 18. They beat him so bad in most of those series, just beat his brains in. You're going to bring the Hall of Fame thing into it. In 2011, for example, Boston had 3 Hall of Famers on their team. Now, they're past their prime. They're all in their, 32 to 35 range, I believe? Because Ray Allen was 38 his last season. Ray Allen was 35. I think Garnett was 34 and Pierce was 33. Clearly past their prime. They won 56 games. Chicago, the number 1 seed in the East, they won 62 games. They didn't have any Hall of Famers. Now, they did have the MVP, and Rose would have been had he not got hurt. I compare Derrick Rose a lot to Penny Hardaway, even though Rose had even more of a career than Penny did, believe it or not. Same type of thing. Now, in my mind, I think the Bulls series was more impressive win than beating the Celtics. But by these idiots' metric, oh no, it was definitely Boston. They had 3 Hall of Famers. Oklahoma City, they had 3 Hall of Famers. James Harden was coming off the bench. 3 future MVPs. That goes to show how weak the league was. None of those guys would have won an MVP in the 90s. And not just because of Michael Jordan. Even in the mid-90s. Tell me, what do you think? Durant's best season. You think he's beating out Olajuwon in 94 or David Robinson in 95? Really? That's a joke. None of those dudes are winning MVPs in the 90s. Magic won it in 1990. Barkley in 93. Maybe a shot, but I still doubt it. 97, 99, Karl Malone. Maybe Malone in 99. That was the only one, maybe. But during the Jordan era, 90 to 98, none of those guys are getting MVPs. So anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you wouldn't mind sharing it, that would be great. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. I give daily content. And that's it. Until next time.